The Fortuneteller is the 14th episode of Avatar: Last Airbender, the greatest show of all time, at least in my opinion. And it has a pretty special place when it comes to season 1 and how it's structured. It comes after two absolutely certified hood classics, The Storm and The Blue Spirit, which are great, near perfect, or if not perfect episodes, masterpieces, if I may. And therefore, the fortune teller often gets forgotten in discussions, especially when it comes to season 1 episodes, since I believe it's a pretty great one. And it serves a really great use when it comes to the sequence of this season, because it's really a palate cleanser to the two series episodes that comes beforehand. The Blue Spirit and the Storm are really backstory heavy. They do not have too much humor in them, even though they do have some humor. They have a really serious tone, and here we get more lightheartedness, more humor, and love, of course, which is the main focus of the episode. And I love love, as Terry once said, if you know, you know. That is why today I will describe why the fortune teller is underrated. But first, please like the video. It really helps out the channel, and subscribe if you want to check out each week a new episode of Avatar breakdowns. I will be breaking down one episode per week, so stay tuned for that. Hit the notifications. But without further ado, let's get right into it. The opening of this episode resembles a lot of other openings from season 1, and I just love this kind of opening. The season 1 camping style, gang hanging out, the family vibes. It's so important for us to really get to know these, especially 3 characters, so that character moments later on or important events really hit as much as they should do. That we know these characters day to day, not just in the mission of things. So it's good to see them outside the Avatar main story, just hanging out them, and then smoothly transitioning. And it's a good transition here. We'll take that a little later. Aang and Katara we need to talk about first. The cute moment, him giving in the necklace, so cute, so good. And we also get the pretty good joke for Sokka with the fishing line. It establishes the romantic tone so early, which is so necessary for an episode so focused on it. It gives it a lot of foreshadowing for the episode and makes their positions clear. Aang's downright bad for Katara. He's had a big crush, it's pretty obvious, and Katara thinking Aang is quote unquote just a good friend really makes their stances clear and how they are going into this, and how at least one of their positions will change drastically, which is so important for this episode to really establish the tone early. They later transition to the main plot and move the plot forward through the platypus bear attack and the screaming different things, like how they should run away or climb up a tree or like lay dead. Is so funny because I've heard people argue that about real bears in real life, and it's so funny. Appa gets a good moment, a funny moment, and I always love an Appa inclusion. We don't always get that, but when he's more like heavily involved, I love that. Appa is the GOAT. And it's an interesting way they introduce the idea of this destiny early on, how he's so calm, and it's kind of like up in the air if he's right or not, if it's a placebo, and it's a through line through the whole episode. It's really important for the conflict between the siblings especially, and Katara's forward motion in her interest for Aang. So it's really good to see that they have an interesting idea, or a pretty standard idea, but they do an interesting thing with it. We get a few more good jokes, especially from Sokka with the umbrella, and it's just, they make Sokka against the form of destiny, and it really makes sense. You know, he's the strategy, the logic guy, and also he's the non-bender, and bending is kind of magical, so it's pretty obvious that he would, from a character sense, not believe in it. So it feels right that Sokka is against it and Katara is for it, and Aang is just piggybacking of Katara, obviously. If we move on to Aang, in totality, it's really the love that is the focus for him the whole episode. his and Katara's relationship, or if you want to call it that, is really in the forefront for the first time, because it's really only been hinted through Aang's crush before. This is the first episode that really focuses on it, and it's just very relatable how he's struggling to get her to notice him and how he's trying different things. It's just so relatable. I've done the same things to my crushes and they just do not notice me or whatever. And Aang going to Sokka for advice is just hilarious, because it just seems like Sokka has the worst advice. And well, maybe not, because he gets the woman he gets all the women. Like, he is a woman magnet through the show. So maybe not, but it just feels like wrong to go to Sokka for advice, and he gives some pretty terrible advice, not gonna lie. But it's true that Sokka do have the riz, as the kids say these days. If we move on to Katara, love is also her focus. Her realizing she has eye for Aang is the main crutch of the episode. And yeah, it's not great in my opinion, but it's not bad. At best, it's just her seeing him in a different light, a new context, just opening up to the idea. She is opening up to the idea, but just seeing him in a different way, which is okay, I guess. It seems a little sudden. I wish it was maybe a little longer span, maybe a few episodes. I do say that a lot but you can't go in depth with everything, so I think it's fine. But at worst, it's like kind of cheap. It's so fast. It's too much trust in Antu's prediction, or Aang gets special treatment because he's the Avatar, so it's kind of weird there. But in my opinion, I believe, or I lean the former. Maybe I have too much trust in the show. Maybe I'm biased, I don't know, but I do trust them in this. That is just new context, and Katara seeing him in a new light because of it. It's just Katara making that connection with the help of Wu and the context and her prediction, not because of it, if you get what I mean. If we move on to Sokka now, he takes a backseat this episode, but he's often in the backseat in these early episodes. But he plays an important role. He plays like the opposite against Katara, her foil to play against, and it's really important for especially the plot, since he's kind of the one that's against it. So when the volcano actually erupts, he's right. So you have to have that perspective. It really provides an important perspective to the episode, and it's really needed. And also, he's extremely funny in this episode. The self-deprivating actions he does is just too funny, and predicted earlier by Katara. The kicking the rock thing is super funny. It's good that they take it back just twice. He has several good jokes, which is just killer in this episode. He can be a little hit or miss, but in this episode he is absolute gold. On to Wu, our new supporting character, plays with what we already know when it comes to destiny, and her whole thing is destiny. It's a little up in the air if she can predict it or not, in my opinion, because she has some predictable thing. Some are super easy and seem manipulative, but others seem kind of unexplainable, like the umbrella thing. It's super on time. It's maybe not weird that she predicted that it's gonna rain. Like, a lot of people can predict that, but the fact that it's so on time is kind of weird. But yeah, I honestly love how much the faith all the people in the town have of her. This means like she has some capabilities, but she do seem to manipulate, especially like with the red shoes is a good example. And the panda lily, if she said to one person, oh, you're gonna give the panda lily, one person to receive it, yeah, obviously they're gonna connect and think, and if they have enough belief, they're gonna placebo themselves into thinking it's love. But that is another question that is unanswered. The panda lily. So that man went to get a panda lily because he has it, and Aang asks where he got it from. That's how he got the idea to walk up the volcano. When the guy walked up there, how did he not see the volcano as Aang did? Like, I cannot believe that didn't they see it like the Aang and Sokka did? Did they just pick it and like, oh no, it's fine? I cannot like fathom that, and the fact that they're not walking up to the check is just so lazy. It doesn't seem that far. They walk Aang and Sokka. I was gonna say like Aang. Oh, obviously he goes up faster. He's an airbender, so he can kind of cheat. But Sokka's just a normal person, and he walks up there. It's in seemingly like an hour or two. It just seems so quick. It's still days, like still noon when they leave, and still noon when they arrive. So it can't be that. It can't be more than 3 hours. So it's like, how does this work? Why are they so lazy not to just one person walk up there and check? And they seemingly people go up there to check to get those penalties. So like, how does that even work? I'm sorry, but that's just such an inconsistency. If we move on to the girl, I can't remember her name right now actually, but she provides a good message. The feelings are not reciprocated from Aang's side, and it's very relatable. That's okay, and it's a good message to deliver to kids, because sometimes your crush won't like you back, and that's totally fine. It happened to all of us, and it's a great message to give. And it's good that they have this little talk when Aang breaks in that's more on the nose, because I feel like it was so important for this message to get across clearly. And yeah, she's not too much more really. Yeah, she's quirky and awkward, but she is one of small characters, small supporting characters. So she serves a role, and I think she's good in her role. There's nothing too much more, but you can't expect that from such a small one-off character. A little extra things I picked up on when I was watching the episode was the vibe. It has that season 1 flair, the funny, lighthearted, with a good message kind of Avatar, and that feels like quintessential Avatar to me at least. The supporting characters, they're memorable. Aunt Wu is definitely the highlight, but also the girl and the traveler are both pretty memorable. And just love is just a vibe. It's tackled with pretty maturity and nuance, especially with Aang's crush compared to the girl's crush on Aang. So it's really shown from two different perspectives. Not my favorite part of Avatar, like the Katara Aang romance, but I'll get to that in later seasons. It's not too bad, but maybe not my favorite thing of Avatar. It's good that they did not focus on it too much. The action is pretty decent. Good silly first fight with the bear. It's pretty funny how they're screaming at him and him just staying calm. Yeah, it's pretty funny. And then the Appa moment is pretty funny, that too. The volcano scene, which is the next, is not too many like direct fights here, which I do think is appropriate for the tone. But the volcano gives Aang a sick moment. He seems so powerful, good visuals. Seems just a little high stakes for this type of story, honestly. Maybe that's just me, but I feel like it's just too big of stakes. Like the volcano erupting, it's also too much parallel to him and Roku. So the Roku was this full realized avatar, and yeah, he couldn't defeat the volcano and he died because of it. But Aang, I know it's like a smaller volcano and everything, but that doesn't really matter in the viewer's mind, since all they're going to remember is, oh, Aang stopped the volcano when he was just an airbender and a lower waterbender, and Roku, who was all like a full realized avatar with the avatar state and Sozin's help a little, couldn't do it. So like, how's his power scaling that? That's the only thing. I wish it was a little smaller scale to show Aang's power still, but not that, to the point that it's absurd in any way, because I feel like it's a little overblown or overstated. That's the one thing. It just feels a little too much, maybe. But it's still a good scene, still good visuals, good music. The lack of Zuko, I gotta touch upon just real quick. Unlike something like The Great Divide, which is just screaming for a Zuko plotline, just Zuko and Iroh would have been so neat in the episode. If you haven't checked out my dissection of that episode, go check it out. But here in the Fortuneteller, he's not missed, honestly, which is kind of weird because Zuko is probably the best character. The main plot just doesn't have any holes to fill with Zuko. I feel like it's just complete, and his inclusion would have probably been a little weird for the tone. Since his anger issues, you could have probably made a pretty good episode with comparing, the love and the hate blah blah blah. But I feel like we've had enough Aang Zuko comparisons in the last few episodes beforehand, as we spoke about earlier. So I'm pretty happy. And the main plot doesn't really have any holes to fill for Zuko, as I previously mentioned. Overall, I believe this is a good to great episode. It feels like classic Avatar. The music, the vibes, the comedy, the opening. It's just all so classic Avatar, and it just feels so untouchable in some ways when it comes to criticism. But it's, as of the last 50 minutes, it's not untouchable, but it's still a solid inclusion. It's not as amazing as the two that came before, but I do still hold it in the top half of season 1. Better than something like Bottle of the Water Tribe that comes after. Better than even the finale, which I will get to when I get to it. It's pretty underwhelming in my opinion. That's all you get to know now. But anyway, if you made it this far into the video, please tell me in the comments. Do you love this episode? Do you hate it? Also, don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed and subscribe for one episode breakdown each week. But until next time, I hope you have a great day.